it's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I have a card featuring a colored vellum shaker technique, and I'm also going to be featuring some of the new Simon Says Stamp Spring Plush dies and also a new stamp set which is part of their March release. So let's get started and check out the card. So here I've got the Plush Springtime Chick die set. This is a really cute die set that has all of the things you need to be able to create a cute little chick, and you could turn this into a plush. It's meant to be used with felt, but you can use it with other things as I'm going to be showing you here today. The die comes on a nice magnetic sheet that lets you be able to keep your dies nice and organized, and they're also pre-cut so you don't have to trim them apart with your little die snips. So I'm going to be starting off by die cutting my little chick here from some vellum. I'm going to be running this through my Big Shot machine. I'm going to be die cutting one piece, and then as you see when we pull it out, it die cuts the vellum perfectly and also gives you all the little holes that you'll need to be able to sew the pieces together, especially if you were using this with felt or something like that. I'm also going to die cut a second body, and this time also a wing. And here I've got the little legs and also a beak, and I'm going to run those through with some wood paper. This adds a nice bit of texture for the bird. So here's all the pieces we're going to need. The die does end up cutting out 2 eyes, but I only ended up using 1 for this project. To start off, I'm going to be putting some wild honey distress ink on top of my vellum bird here. I'm going to be sponging this on with an ink blending tool, and I'm going to make sure that I get this bird completely and evenly covered. Now be careful when you're doing your ink blending because you can easily get fingerprints on these little birds. So I'm just being careful to grab it along the very edges and then quickly touch those spots up before I go and heat set this. I'm going to dry this because that'll make sure that the ink sets into the paper and it'll be perfectly dry and won't smear or lift off once you've got it heat set. Once I've got my papers colored with the ink, I'm going to go ahead and start sewing them together. I've got a needle here and I've threaded it with some baker's twine. This is some yellow and white baker's twine from American Crafts. I'm going to start sewing these 2 pieces together. And I'm going to start off by pulling the thread up through the back side of the bird, pulling it all the way through, and I'm going to go ahead and push it down through the next hole. Now we want to make sure that we go through each and every one of these holes because we want to make sure that it's completely closed up so none of our shaker elements will fall out. If you weren't making a shaker, you could easily skip spaces and let that be, but we're going to do a back stitch so that way we can make sure that we have all of those spaces completely filled and closed so that way nothing ends up falling out. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and sew all of these pieces together. I'm going to go all the way around and make sure that I get all the holes filled. And then when I finish off, I'm going to stop before I get to the very end, and I'm going to be able to fill this with my little sequins. As you can see here, I've got a nice little opening for me to be able to put some sequins in. So I've got some Pretty Pink Posh, iridescent hearts, some sunshine glow, and some lemon meringue. And I'm going to be making a little bit of a custom mix here. I'm doing this on some paper so that way I can control what colors I've got and how many I'm putting in there. But if you wanted to go ahead and start putting them into the bird right away without mixing them onto some paper first, feel free to do so. So I'm just going to mix these together and get them to the combination that I like. And then once I have it all ready to go, I'm going to make a funnel out of my paper. I'm just going to fold the very end. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my little bird and fill that up with the little sequins. Once I have that all filled, I'm going to go ahead and sew the rest of my bird together. You can see those sequins inside. It adds a really nice bit of texture and some fun shine to your vellum shaker element, which is really, really fun. And like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and sew all of this back together. I'm going to go ahead and do that same back stitch that I did around the first part of the bird to finish this off. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and tie that into a little overhand knot. Make sure that's nice and tight. You could also put some glue on this to make sure it doesn't unravel, but I felt it was tight enough that it wasn't going to fall apart, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as is. Now for the little wing, I'm going to do the same exact thing, except this time I'm only doing 1 layer. I'm not doing 2 layers like I did for the body. This is just going to be 1 wing. I'm going to go ahead and run that back stitch all the way around, and then I'll go ahead and tie an overhand knot to close that one up as well. So I've got some cool tack clear foam tape. This is really, really great foam tape because it works well on vellum. You're not going to be able to see this like you would regular white foam tape or any black foam tape or anything like that. This is completely clear, so it allows you to be able to pop your vellum up off your paper and not being able to see that adhesive. So there you go. We've got our little bird partly built. He looks so cute already. Now I'm going to set that aside for a minute while I go ahead and work on the background of my scene. I'm going to be creating a little scene with this guy. So I've got the Simon Says Stamp Bold Flowers stencil, and I'm going to go ahead and start sponging on some Tumble Glass Distress ink to create a background. Now, I'm not using these flowers as flowers for this particular card. I'm going to be using them to create a sort of sky, cloudy, puffy sky technique. So I'm going to start by spritzing on some water to get that ink blending a little bit into the paper. And now I'm going to go ahead and bring in some Wild Honey Distress ink and add a little bit more yellow into the sky. I'm making sure I keep the focus of my color along the bottom left portion of the card panel. And I'll just go ahead and add that in. And then I'll go ahead and take some Tumble Glass Distress ink once again in a wet paintbrush. I'm going to go ahead and flick some droplets of color on there. It adds a little bit more extra texture to the sky. It really makes this a fun background. Alright, so now I've got my grass here that I've die cut from a My Favorite Things Grassy Hills die. And I just used some Mowed Lawn and Twisted Citron Distress inks to go ahead and add some shading. And now I'm taking some Copic markers and I'm adding some grass blades. I like doing this for my grass because it adds a little bit more dimension to the ground without it being flat color. And I really think this adds a nice bit of extra texture to the ground to keep it from looking too plain. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment, which is from the new stamp set, the Cute Chicks stamp set. I'm going to have another card tomorrow for the Simon Says Stamp blog hop for this release, so be sure to stop back to check that out. I heat embossed that with some platinum embossing powder, and now I'm stamping some of the clouds from that stamp set. And I'm going to go ahead and use some Hero Arts gray ink, and I'll have all the products listed over on my blog if you're interested in them. I fussy cut those out, and now I'm going to go ahead and attach those onto my card along with my bird. I used some of that clear foam tape once again. Now I've got those little pieces to his beak and his little legs, and I'm going to go ahead and attach those down with some PPA matte adhesive. I also attached the eye down in the same way. I colored it black. It was brown, but I ended up adding some black on top of it. And now I'm going to take those music notes, which are also from the Cute Chicks stamp set, and I'm going to put them along the right-hand portion of my card here to go ahead and make it look like the bird is singing. So to put this card together, I've got some vellum here that I've cut down with my Simon Says Stamp Stitched Rectangles dies. And I'm going to go ahead and attach this on with some foam tape, and then with some regular adhesive, I'll put that down onto my card. And then I'm going to finish it off with some highlights with a white gel pen, and that's going to do it. I hope you've enjoyed. Be sure to stop over at my blog where you can get more information on this card, including the products used. There also, again, is a blog hop tomorrow featuring the Simon Says Stamp new release, so be sure to stop back and check that out. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you in the next video.